What's up, you guys? Hawk here as always for your weekly anime manga reviews, and I'm here with another video. So today, I kind of wanted to talk about Attack on Titan, and normally on my channel, obviously, I don't talk about Attack on Titan too much, and I don't plan on doing a whole lot of Attack on Titan content, like dropping a video here and there. I guess it kind of just depends, because normally when I get up in the morning, I kind of have an idea of what I want to talk about during that day, and I felt like talking about Attack on Titan today, so here we are. Now, today, we're actually going to be talking about ship. And yes, I don't normally do a whole lot of videos talking about ships. And to be honest, even though I do like the concept of like relationships and the way how people are towards one another, regardless of the bond, whether it's a friendship type thing or a romantic type thing, I mean, for God's sakes, I'm a sociology major. There's very few ships in anime that I go back to and I think about it, whether it's a canon ship or kind of a ship that could have happened but didn't happen, where I just sit to myself and I'm like, wow, if this did happen, it could have changed the story, or it can impact the story in a really big way, or I'm just very fond of it because of this, and reason. And like, I guess to just name a few ships that I kind of felt that way for, I really do like the relationship between Kaneki and Toka. I also really like the kind of knock ship between Kaneki and Eto, if that possibly could have happened. I also like Alibaba and Kyogoku, and I'm not going to really get into super spoilers about like other ships that happen in the story because, you know, I don't want to spoil anybody. But today we're going to be talking about Eren and Historia, and initially I wasn't super fond of this ship. Actually, I was a really big advocate of, I feel like by the end of the story, I feel like if Isayama decides to go the route where Eren hooks up with anybody, because there's a lot of different series where normally the protagonist doesn't really hook up with anyone, and if they do, it's like after a long time skip. But I have my own theories about what's going to happen with Eren in the end of Attack on Titan. I'm going to get into that a little bit later, and I'll probably make a separate video talking about that as a whole. But I always kind of feel like, okay, if Eren does end up with anybody, since Mikasa is the main female character of the story, most of the time the main protagonist ends up with the main female. So realistically, it should be Mikasa, as well as we know how Mikasa's feelings are towards Eren, and yada yada yada. And, you know, I made a video in the past on my old channel talking about Mikasa's feelings towards Eren, and how I always felt like even though Mikasa clearly has feelings that are more than just romantic for Eren, and we even get a little bit more insight on that, I kind of always felt like that Eren's feelings towards her were always very complicated because Eren never seems to reciprocate the same exact emotions that she does towards him. So I'll get into that a little bit more later on in this video. And anyways, I'm not trying to sound super cringy in this because I know I'm talking about ships, and I know a lot of people in anime communities kind of, when they see shipping videos, they're like, nah, I'm staying away from that. Hopefully you guys can listen to what I have to say and enjoy this video. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so when it comes to the relationship between Eren and Historia, one thing about it that I've always found very interesting is the fact that in a lot of ways, if they actually did decide to hook up, it would be very representative of Eren's father, as well as, I believe her name was Dina, Zeke's mother. And it could be very possible, based off of everything that's currently going on in the manga, that the child that Historia is having is not actually the child of the man back at the farm that she grew up in when she was very young. Now, to be entirely honest, this isn't really a theory that I myself came up with. This is actually a theory that I've been seeing going through the Attack on Titan fan base for a while now, and I've wanted to give my thoughts about it because this is one of the very few theories in the Attack on Titan fandom that I'm extremely fond of. That, as well as the whole connection between Eren Yeager and Eren Kruger. I'll probably make another video talking about that maybe later on in the week or even next week, since I have finals coming up and I'll be off for a while. I guess you guys can just let me know in the comment section down below. But besides that, going back to what I was saying before, the whole entire thought about Historia, not necessarily a main character, but a very prominent side character in the story, hooking up with someone who we don't really have that much insight in. Not to mention, I believe the man who she hooked up with was the guy who used to be very, very mean to her when she was a child. Put kind of a bad taste in a lot of fans' mouths, because people would wonder, like, why would she want to go back to him of all people, especially coming from the fact that you look at Historia, and even though she does care about her own, her own land, her country, and she is a very kind person, I doubt that she'd want to go through something like that and become married to someone like that and have a child with them if just for the betterment of the country. I feel like in some type of way she would want some type of happiness, and it could be possible that the guy who she's married to is kind of more on the lines of a figurehead. And even if you look at the relationship between the two of them, it doesn't really seem to be filled with that much love, at least to the point where they would bother even like having a child together. If anything, I think it's more plausible that since we don't really know entirely of Eren's motives and what exactly he's trying to plan and all this stuff, and we do know the relationship between Eren and his father, that they were pretty close, as well as we don't really know too much about his relationship currently with Zeke, it's possible that Eren might be working alongside with Historia and the child that Historia is currently pregnant with, not to mention the fact that we do know that Eren is, or not Eren, but Historia herself, for whatever reason, got pregnant early and ended up causing her getting the Beast Titan to kind of get postponed instead of her getting it a lot earlier, where she would have the Titan and then she would have a kid afterwards, or having, that whole entire process. It got sped up considerably. So it is very possible that maybe the child that Historia has is Eren's and not that man's. So that is kind of one thing I do want people to consider. Not to mention Eren's own blood, in the fact that his Titan could end up being passed down to a person down the family bloodline of Historia might be a little bit more beneficial to him, or at least someone who might be very close to the bloodline. Not necessarily related, but a very close friend or something on those lines could be very beneficial, because we do know that if you get the Founding Titan's ability and you happen to be of the royal bloodline, obviously you'd be controlled by the will of the original king and all that stuff. So I guess there's a whole lot of things that could end up happening, but I do feel like that there is a very strong possibility that by the time of Attack on Titan being finished, most of the Titans are most likely going to be in the possession of one person. And I'm not necessarily sure how exactly that's going to go, whether it's Eren going around eating everybody or it will end up belonging to someone like Armin. I'm not entirely sure, but I do feel like that most of the Titans are going to end up becoming owned by one person by the ending of AOT. But going back to the relationship at hand, the main thing that I feel like a lot of people are probably going to comment on and question why exactly I say Historia over Mikasa. Now, one thing I do want to say is I personally like Mikasa more than I like Historia. Not necessarily as a shipping person, but just as an overall character. I do like Historia. Like, I used to not be super fond of her, but after watching a little bit of the season 3 anime and rereading parts of the manga, I do like Historia a lot more than I used to. But Mikasa, the way how I've always kind of looked at Mikasa, and one thing about her that I've actually found very interesting in comparison to someone like Eren, is the fact that we obviously see Mikasa's feelings, the way how she acts towards Eren. Even though she doesn't outwardly say them, it's very easy to tell that the way how she looks at Eren is a little bit more than just a close friend. It's more on the lines of romantic. And Eren, I've said before, hasn't really reciprocated those exact same feelings towards Mikasa. Like, you even see that during the scene where Eren awakens his coordinate ability for the very first time, and you have where Mikasa has that really heartfelt speech where she's kind of talking about how Eren's involvement in her entire life has caused her to change for the better, and she's just become a very strong person out of it, and how she feels like she's in so much debt to him. And kind of the whole entire scene, I've kind of always looked at it as Mikasa subtly kind of not confirming, confessing her feelings very subtly, not outwardly saying it, but very heavily implying it, as well as accepting their fates in that situation where it looked like that they were going to end up dying. And in the anime version, it's a little bit different than the manga, because in the anime, it kind of looks like as if Mikasa is going in for a kiss during that scene. In the manga, it's not that apparent, but you have where instead of kind of Eren, I guess, reciprocating his own feelings, you kind of have where he ends up fighting against the situation, and instead of accepting the fact that he could end up dying, he decides to continue on fighting, and he ends up using this coordinate for the first time. And you even have where he says something on the lines of, okay, then I'll be the one to wrap that scarf around you as many times as you want. And, obviously that scene is very contradictory to what we're getting right now in the manga, where Eren says something on the lines of that he's always hated Mikasa. I can make a separate video talking about that. I don't think that Eren hates Mikasa or Armin. He's most likely faking it. And we even get the whole entire stuff, the reveal from Eren that, the Ackermans, the moment that they awaken, they become awakened, they end up bonding themselves to, I think the way how they said it in the translation was a host, but pretty much they end up bonding themselves to someone and protecting them as much as they can. Now, a lot of people have kind of said things about that, and I'll probably make this whole entire video talking about, like, honestly, the most recent Attack on Titan chapter gave me so many ideas for Attack on Titan related videos, but I'll probably end up making a video talking about, like, awakening and stuff, because some people have argued and said, like, well, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because, we've seen characters who are awakened, other Ackermans, who don't seem to be as, I guess, bonded to their host as Mikasa is to Eren, where Mikasa's literally not able to do anything towards Eren. But you have where someone like Levi has kind of disagreed with someone like Erwin, who you can assume is the person that he's bonded to, or was bonded to. And you even see where, like, Kenny doesn't seem to be extremely, I guess, loyal to even, like, the Reese bloodline. So it's kind of weird in that respect. So you can even argue and say that Mikasa's feelings due to that alone aren't really as genuine as it could be compared to someone else like Historia if her and Eren did decide to hook up. Even though, obviously, if Eren and Historia did hook up, I do feel like partially the main reason for it would be due to, like, the overall plan and not necessarily, like, full-on love. But there is some chemistry between the two of them. But, like, going back to what I was saying about Mikasa, it's very possible that Mikasa wouldn't even have those feelings for Eren, at least not as strong as she does right now, if it wasn't for the fact that she is awakened and Eren's the person that she ended up bonding herself to. And you even have where Eren, even though he is saying some things that I don't necessarily think he actually feels, there is some truth to the things that he is saying, though. And that's one thing that I feel like a lot of people should look at. And there's even, like, another aspect, and this is just my own personal feelings, I guess, instead of, like, I guess all of this is personal feelings, but I feel like if Eren and Mikasa hooked up, it would be kind of weird. And obviously they're not related by blood, but you have where Eren and Mikasa for a long period of time were kind of raised together like siblings. So if they did hook up, it'd be really, really, really weird, because that's almost like the same situation in the Flash TV show with Iris and Barry, where it's like, you shouldn't be in a situation where you would have to be, well, obviously Eren's parents are dead and so is Mikasa's parents, but you shouldn't be in a situation where you can argue and say that you can both call the same person who you live with dad, and that's just kind of weird. Like, I wouldn't really like it from that regard. Like, it's not incest, obviously, but it's still really creepy, just due to the fact that I feel like, realistically, Eren probably looks at Mikasa as sort of a sister, like an older sister, or even like a twin sister, and Mikasa might look at him more in a romantic type way as sort of her savior, I guess. And that's kind of the way I look at it. Now, going back to Historia and Eren, I kind of feel like when you look at their relationship, since they grow up not super similarly, but you have where they kind of have similar mindsets, and they both kind of play on each other when it comes to their own sides of weakness as well as their strong points as well. Not to mention, I feel like Eren is the only person in the entirety of the series who kind of looks at Historia for who she actually is, and not just some type of like this puppet that is going to be used in the grand scheme in order to kind of make things better for themselves in the long run. And I guess the only other person you can kind of argue that is also Ymir, which it sounds kind of weird when I say this, but I do also ship Ymir in Historia. Like, because I've always kind of had like the mindset, well, for a while I had the mindset that I kind of felt like that Historia might have had feelings for Ymir, or they could have just been really close friends. I don't really know. Obviously Ymir had feelings for Historia because she admitted that she wanted to marry her, but you know, whatever. So going back to what I was saying before, you have the whole entire scene back when Eren was going to end up being sacrificed back in, you know, Attack on Titan Season 3. you have where Eren, like, he hears the whole entire story about what his father did, as well as what happened to Historia's sister, and how Eren kind of felt responsible, and this was going to be the point in time where he would sort of be atoning for his father's sins. And you have where when Historia, like, frees him, obviously, and kind of sees this weak side to Eren. I like that there's the whole entire scene between Eren and Historia where they're talking, and he talks about how he prefers Historia over Krista, because obviously Krista was like a false name. It was a pseudonym that she was going for a while. And I like the fact that because of Eren and the way how he's been, the fact that he's always been very hard-headed, and you even have where some points earlier on in the story, they call him the suicidal hothead, kind of caused Historia to also become very strong as well from a mentality standpoint. And you even have where when Eren is in like in a really weak state where he kind of goes against everything that he's been up until this point, where he kind of finally breaks down, Historia is there to bring him back up. And that's just kind of the main thing that I've always really liked about the relationship, as well as Historia because of her bloodline, as well as Eren. If they did hook up, they could kind of cause something to happen in order to create a future for the Attack on Titan world where people can actually finally be free. And okay, so this is going to be the point where I go into spoilers for the last panel of Attack on Titan that Isayama showed. Obviously, I'm not going to show it in this video, but I do want to briefly talk about it. So if you don't want to be spoiled about that, this is your chance to leave. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the final panel of Attack on Titan. We see actually a person holding a baby, and it, like, the person says, "You're free now." And to this point, we still don't know obviously who that is, but a lot of people I've seen speculate saying that's either a descendant of Eren who is going to be holding, maybe that's their child. And I've seen also people speculate that it could be Armin holding the child of Historia and Eren, saying that they're free from the curse that has been put onto Historia's bloodline, as well as the fact of the whole entire curse of potentially becoming a Titan shifter. So that's kind of one thing I wanted to say. But besides that, that's kind of it for this video. Comment down below your thoughts. Do you think this ship might end up happening? And if it does, do you think it's going to be used in a more political type way, like how I was saying in the video, with how the child could be used as kind of the same way how Grisha and Dina used Zeke? And if so, could it have potentially a better outcome than what actually happened with Zeke? So anyways, thank you for watching. Remember to comment, subscribe as always, guys. I love you all. Jim Hawk signing out. See you guys.